In three, two, or longer than that.
We record the Zoom for.
And you open the door and you step inside. We're inside our hearts. Now within your pain is a white ball of healing light. That's right. Your pain. The pain itself is a white ball of healing light. I think so. This is your life. Good to the last drop. Doesn't get any better than this. This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time. This isn't a seminar. This isn't a weekend retreat.
Yeah, I think that's good starting music. I also, in my never-ending quest to get a cease and desist from somebody famous so that I can become internet famous, I'm doing that too. All right. Yeah, I think that's good starting music. I also... Shut up, other Jimmy. To get a cease and desist from somebody famous so that I can become internet famous? Yeah, let's turn that off. I'm doing that too. All right.
Off to a stellar start.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's all solid. We're right on schedule. I don't actually have to be watching my live stream, do I?
No.
Oh, okay. There, problem solved. Problem solved. Except for I think I'm the only one that can be heard on the live stream.
What do I need to do to fix that?
I don't think you can. I think the whole idea of live streaming a clubhouse is just further proof that I make things more difficult than they need to be. This is why I need a scrum master, and I shouldn't be left unsupervised. And I'm an old ass man.
You have 2 scrum masters, and you're still left unsupervised.
I know, it's crazy. That doesn't seem to echo or anything.
Not at all.
Huh. So, according to the show notes, we're going to do introductions.
Yeah, we're a minute and a half in.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of time left. In fact, I'm out of time now. So I'm me, you're you. Let's move on. Is there anything good in the parking lot? I haven't looked at the parking lot in a while. Are you
There's always something good in the parking lot.
Are you time boxing me, Kavanaugh?
Like a good scrum master, yes I am.
Oh man.
Now the time box is not a deadline. Just an opportunity.
Well, I mean, it kind of is because you have to stop whatever you were doing and do something else.
Yeah, that's right. Good questions in the parking lot. I'm assuming that you put everything in yellow?
No, I didn't put any of that stuff there.
You didn't put any of that stuff here. All right, well, let's see. That's not scrum related. That's not scrum related. All right, let's start with this one, because I think you can answer this in a couple minutes. In a daily scrum, should everyone talk, or just if they have something relevant to say?
I think to make it as useful as possible, everybody should talk at the exact same time as loud as they can. It'll be much faster. But it occurs to me on second thought that people won't hear each other. So I'm going to go with put me down for talk if you have something relevant and useful to say. And I know why that question got asked, because like it's a rookie Scrum Master thing where you think, and I can remember doing this, and I can remember developers looking at me like I was nuts, and have everybody stand in a nice semicircle, and hey, what did you do today? Yeah, what did you do yesterday? Do you have any impediments? And everybody was always like, why are we doing that? That's not very useful. And I think it's because of sort of the mashup of Scrum and XP, right? Because I remember being on an XP team and having first thing in the morning just a real quick conversation about work, just so we could sort of get started. But, you know, we paired too, so it was important to sort of talk to each other. But on a Scrum team that's like fully cross-functional, I don't know that that's terribly useful. I've had teams that do both, but I'm going to say for a daily Scrum, I don't think say whatever is going to be useful. That's going to say how you contributed to the sprint goal. And if somebody else says what you were going to say, then you don't have to say it again. One thing is, I've had a lot of Scrum teams, not enough, but that do XP. And so the pair programmers would both do their daily Scrum by saying what they did yesterday and what they were going to do today. And that was like, it was weird. It was like you're that kid riding the big wheel down the overlook hallway, and those two weird twin girls show up. So I'm going to say if it's useful.
Great. Here's another one, easy to answer for you. What's the proper use of letters after your name? Are there best practices on how many certs you should list after your name to not look like a jerk?
Yeah, I would say there's this thing called letter fatigue, and I was a hiring manager for years, and especially in like the tech industry, people go crazy with certifications because I worked at a publishing company where honorifics were a big deal. So people with PhDs would always put their PhD after it and doctor in front, and they would always put their their M.Ed or whatever, their honorifics. And so one of my friends who was just an IT guy who had like 17 certifications got new business cards that had every certification listed, and it filled up the whole front of his business card. He would just hand it to people because it annoyed him. I think you should maybe, target it. Certifications are a racket, right? To get in the door somewhere. So wherever you're trying to get in the door, figure out what certifications are they looking for. If it's the tech industry, they're probably looking for a Scrum Alliance certification and a PMI certification. The CSM and the PMP being like the two biggest ones. So only use the ones that are going to be relevant and useful to the HR drone that has to filter you through things, and target it. In general, I try not to use any more than 3 tops, and that's only if I'm trying to show off, because I know I'm talking to somebody who cares about those things. Also, if you have multiple certifications from one certifying body, don't use all of them. Only use the highest value, highest level ones. If you're a CAPM from PMI, but then you got your PMP, don't do CAPM PMP, because CAPM is for people that can't get PMP because they don't have the hours or something. That's what I'd say.
Great. All right, let's get into some meat of a question. Are you against capacity planning in conjunction with Scrum?
I mean, it depends on what capacity planning means. I assume that question is because we talk in the workshop all the time about the velocity nonsense and story points and all that, and how that may have been a good idea at one point, but if we adhere to the principle that empiricism is a thing, and not everybody does. There's plenty of Scrum people that the empiricism side was sort of Ken's thing, and Jeff Sutherland, he's PhD math machine. He's very sort of left brainy. He wasn't really into that. He loves story points and stuff, or at least he did. I've never found it to be useful, right? Because capacity doesn't tell you what you want to know. What you want to know when you're solving a problem that can't be solved on paper up front. And so you're taking an empirical approach and discovering your way to a product 2 weeks at a time. The amount of work that happens in 2 weeks is 2 weeks worth of work. So I can remember being real hung up on it. But if I have things in a list that represent the needs and problems of real people rather than the solutions themselves, and I have multiple choices for solutions, then I'm going to choose a solution that's appropriate for how high it is on the list and how much time and money I have left. But people are real hung up on doing a certain amount and kind of work in 2 weeks, and that just doesn't make any sense, I don't think. I'm perfectly willing to be proven wrong. I've never had it be useful for me, and I've never seen anybody. It's a very traditional project manager-y thing, right? Like I was a traditional project manager for 10 years, and projects live and die on schedule and budget, scope, schedule, and budget. But it was always weird because in certain industries, particularly industries where you have to do things that people want and need, and they're terrible at telling us what they want and need. That never worked very well, right? Like the publishing company I worked at, 80% of my stuff worked great using that approach because it was measurement and physics and things, and those things are reliable. People aren't. So this emphasis on the work, it's something that I rant about all the time on Twitter and other places, and I'm not really sure how to get people past that because I know as a manager, I was mostly concerned about am I going to deliver? And when you tell somebody like that, I promise you, you'll deliver. I just can't tell you what we're going to deliver. They don't like that because that's just not the way we're used to doing it. So I don't think Scrum has good tools for capacity planning. And I think it's asking the wrong question. I can do exactly the amount of work I plan to do in exactly the amount of time I plan to do it for exactly the amount of money and build the wrong thing. How do I know? I've done that a bunch of times. And so have a lot of other people, particularly in the tech industry. So that's a dicey question. It'd be worth talking about again with some other people.
All right. When an item is not completed during its sprint, is it pushed to the next sprint or held for a later project?
It could be either of those. I think generally I say that if an item isn't finished, the product owner has to decide when does it go back in. It's going to go back on the product backlog for sure, and then it's a sort of a decision on the product owner. Is it still a high return on investment thing? Do we want to keep working on it so as not to disrupt the team, or maybe it got blocked for a good reason, like technology changed, or you have a third outside dependency that's not going to be available. I've had that happen a bunch of times, right? Where like I had a team that was doing something, and they were depending on some third party's web services, for example, and then those web services were behind schedule because tech always is, and so that item was not going to get done because we were waiting on somebody else. Then the product owner has to go, well, when are those guys going to be done? If it's not going to be for a while, I'm going to push it down the list.
Great. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up the beginning of our parking lot Q&A. Time for the main event.
Yeah, so a lot of people, I think this is the thing that we posted out on social media. A lot of people have been talking about pivoting from non-tech jobs into the Scrum Master role, and I have a few thoughts about it. But I thought it would be cool to sort of, you became my Scrum Master, I don't know, last September or something, after you were in my workshop, and I didn't really know your background that much. I just knew you seemed like you got it, and I wanted to coach it up. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what your experience has been, because I think you're more like the people that are asking that question and people that come to our workshop than I am.
Yeah. So for those listening, my background is in the performing arts. I have several degrees, a stage management degree, a master's degree in puppetry, and a clown degree. For the last 15 years, I've been a stage manager and production manager, which in project terms is the equivalent of a project manager and program manager for various theatrical companies. I was hit hard by COVID, like many of the performing arts world, and started looking at my skill set and how I could utilize it in other fields. During a Zoom reunion, a friend of mine said, "Did you know that a stage manager is just a project manager for the real world, or for the theatrical world?" And in the real world, they have other things called project managers, which do the exact same thing. I'm like, huh, really? So I looked into it, and they told me about PMI, and I looked at PMI, and I joined and started taking courses. I earned my CAPM rather quickly just to start to learn the lexicon and the vocabulary, and true enough, everything that I already knew and everything I already did existed in the PMBOK, just with different words and different names. So that was the harder part, is learning the new vocabulary. And then I started training for my PMP and started taking all kinds of crazy certifications and Six Sigma belts and Agile this and Agile that. And I had the joy of taking your workshop in September. And Scrum and its framework and its approach is so similar to the way that art is made, or at least performing art, and the idea that you don't know what you're making. but you're just going to throw some stuff up, and at the end of a couple of weeks, you're going to see what it looks like and how you're doing towards your, your sprint goal, as it were, towards the final product of the performance. And then you go back and you work for a few more weeks, and then you kind of show it, how far you've gotten and the progress. And so that concept and that idea fit into my natural workflow already. And the idea of creating a backlog and doing things based on value and what the old word is size, and that doesn't exist anymore, but doing work based on that. When I was allowed to create a schedule for a company, that is how I operated. Sometimes that wasn't always the case, and the director would want to just work sequentially from the top of the show to the end of the show, and I think that's a terrible way to work. That's like a waterfall approach. But if you can look at a show and like, these are the things that are going to be the most valuable and or the easiest juice to squeeze out of it, let's just knock them out, and then we can show them to people. And for our theatrical purposes, let's say a fight. You don't want to send the end fight of Hamlet. You don't want to rehearse that till the end of the process. You want to get that up on its feet right away, and so that you're getting the most valuable out of one of the biggest crowd-pleasing moments of that performance. And so the idea of working from value-based backlog just made absolute sense to me, and it clicked with me right away. Jimmy, I'm kind of rambling at this point. Should I speak more about any of this, or is that enough?
No, I don't think you're rambling. I find it fascinating. I mean, I'm an old ass man. I've lost beginner mind a long time ago. Plus, I have an overinflated sense of my own abilities and intelligence, which turns out not to be what the rest of the world thinks often. Most people think I'm a nut. So I've always been fascinated by the approach that I have used in tech and other product industries. I see lots of places where it would be useful that it typically isn't done. And actually, our managing director, Katrina Lake, she was in the restaurant industry for 20 years. Now she is peripherally associated with training, and we do a lot of training because she would open restaurants for a holding company and let's set up all the training and lay out all the training. But she and I have talked a lot about how that kind of work is very amenable to this situation. And then I started to develop an opinion probably 4 or 5 years ago when I started to look back on who are the people that I have coached up or worked with that I thought were great Scrum Masters. And here's what makes a great Scrum Master. I don't have to have any kind of metrics at all to know what a great Scrum Master is. If everybody on the team is clicking and they're enjoying what they're doing and they're producing good things and the stakeholders are engaged and like what they're getting, and I don't see the Scrum Master at all, then I know that they're doing a great job. You had a line about that.
Yeah, I have a T-shirt, stage manager. Nobody knows what my job is until I don't do my job.
Yes, and that's Scrum Mastering 101, right? So I have for a long time thought that the best Scrum Masters, just like anecdotally, are people who weren't project managers or developers. Because I was both. I was a developer, and then I was a project manager, and I was a lead developer and a software development manager, and I was a program and portfolio manager running a PMO. So I kind of did all of the awful. I'm biased against those fields, but I struggled with the product owner role and the Scrum Master role, and I have found that people from somewhere else don't struggle as much. So I've been focusing heavily because we do these certification workshops, and I mostly do them to try and meet people. My CSM workshop I do. I mean, there's no overhead now that it's virtual, but I do it for a lot less than I used to. And I try to do it for less than anybody else, but have a better product. And the reason is because I just want to reach out to and meet people and get them moving in the right direction, I think. And what has happened is because of the pandemic and everything else, I have noticed an awful lot of people who aren't in the tech industry. If we're honest, the tech industry hasn't been that hurt by COVID. The tech industry has actually done quite well because, you tell a bunch of developers, hey, You can't come into an office anymore. You got to do all your work from your rig at home. They've been asking for that forever, and that was like a special thing. Like, ooh, I found a job where I get to work remotely, and I was always kind of against that for collaboration reasons. But
It's 19 hours.
thank you, Audrey. Since I started trying to translate my in-person workshops into virtual workshops, I feel a little bit less that way. But I have had a lot of people who came from different places, and they're getting this certification or a certification or multiple certifications related to being a scrum master or something quote unquote agile. And I think it's great. I think the five best people that I've ever had the privilege of sort of raising up as scrum masters and getting involved, one of them is technical. The other four, there's you, stage manager and puppet school. There's Lake. She was in the restaurant industry. There is a girl named Nikki. I guess woman is what you say, but I'm a Mog, so she was the receptionist at one of the first places that I did Scrum, and it was a place where no customers ever came into the building. But the branch manager was a systems integrator, thought we got to have a receptionist because it makes us look professional. And she was bored out of her mind. And I said, hey, you want to be a scrum master? And she's like, do I get to do something besides sit at this desk? I'm like, yes, you do. And she ended up being really great at it. And she's been doing pretty well in Portland since then. And then one other person was technical, definitely technical. And I think it's harder if you're trying to transition from being a software developer or tech person, or if you're trying to transition from project management, because it's just so foreign and counterintuitive. But I think connecting with people, I think crowdsourcing help. Right? I've had 4 or 5 people that took the workshop, got the letters, weren't tech industry people, and ended up getting jobs. A couple of them I had to push a little bit to the people, but I think it's good. I think it's just, I mean, if we're honest, when I started doing it, and I know we only got about a minute left on this, so we'll wrap it up. But when I started doing it, I didn't know a thing about being a scrum master, so I had to fake it till I made it, and that's what I did. So everybody else has to do that too. It's not like you have to have technology experience to be a scrum master. I don't think.
Great.
Anybody? Somebody was poking around on the parking lot earlier, but I don't know how this clubhouse thing works. This wasn't my idea. I don't know if you can. It's not like you can put stuff in the chat. Can you?
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see. Hands are raised.
I don't know if others in the room can speak or just listen.
Well, people can speak. John raised his hand. Now I think he can speak.
Yep, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, John. Okay, so yeah, I've done a couple. I'm new to Clubhouse, but I've done a couple moderations of rooms and stuff like that. But yeah, everyone below the line, like Simon, just it's passive only, no chat, no nothing else. And then where we are is what they call on stage. So you have to be brought on stage by a moderator in order to talk. And then so moderator with the little green star Jimmy has, you can have as many moderators up here, but you can have someone bring people on and off stage, and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of weird because it's very temporal, right? That it's not recorded. You got to catch it live and all that. But it fills some sort of a need. I don't know what problem it's trying to solve, but that's a different problem.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I heard about this from Katrina Lake's, one of her best friends is a realtor, and she's really big into social media stuff, and she's like, this is the thing. Elon Musk did it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Anywhere I can talk to people is great. But I don't understand. I agree with you. I don't understand what problem this is solving.
Yeah, 'cause it's not quite a podcast. You can watch live streams all day, every day. So it's like it's the worst part of a live Zoom webinar.
Kind of, right?
You
I
can't
mean,
see anything.
yeah. But I agree. I don't have beginner mind. So the other thing that made me think maybe this is going to go somewhere is I have young teenagers in my house, and they are always the early adopters of everything. And one thing that I noticed now that they're virtual schooling is that they use their phones as actual phones. So they're in their Zoom doing their school stuff, but then they got their phone and they're doing like a group audio chat and their Zoom is muted. And I'm like, wait, it's like a party line from the 50s, kids. Jeez.
Yeah, it's kind of creative.
I mean, well, nobody's going to figure out how to work the system than a 13 to 17-year-old. You tell them, yeah, if I can see you on screen, then you're in school. I can tell you what I would have done. I would have recorded a background of me just sitting there and put that on as my background. But, oh, Simon! Nobody make fun of Simon. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey there. Yeah, so I am brand new to this as well, and but I think one of the answers to the question of what problems does it solve is I think it's supposed to be, Twitter is a bit of a conversational disaster, and this was, I think, designed to be a place where if you're interested in a conversation, there is at least somebody who's going to be moderating the conversation. And so I think that's what this is supposed to be about, which is if we have interest in topics, we're trying to have decent conversation, but try to perhaps control some of the noise, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I dig it because it's not. Communication has become so asynchronous or unidirectional, right? Like Twitter is. I use Twitter for because if I said those things out in public, I would probably get arrested or beat up. So Twitter is just like a spleen venting exercise, and it seems like that's what people use it for. And Instagram, that's so the exchange is so small, but I'm on the fence still about whether this is useful or not. But I think people don't talk to each other anymore, so maybe it's a good thing. Plus, there's less anonymous coward issues, right? I used to and I'm going to give my age away. I used to do internet relay chat all the time, which was like the first texting, and the very first thing that happened is all of a sudden people who would never ever ever say things that they would say to a person in person would say it on chat. And so we started a whole channel called Dear Anonymous Coward, where it was just like, Dear Anonymous Coward. And I thought maybe it's time for that to come back and start like a Twitter account that's Dear Anonymous Coward and just make light of it, because it's real easy when you're just behind a screen and typing. I think it's real easy to just sort of be 100% id, and there's no like super ego at all who's controlling what you're saying. And I do it too, and then usually my business partner deletes them without telling me because I forget about it.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, I am very interested in the concept that you have put forward here about the Fight Club and about everything that you think you know is probably wrong, because I think that I come from a similar place. I'm probably even older than you are, Jimmy, but you can't tell from this little baby owl that's here. I'll change that so that my face is actually there. But yes, this is a topic that I'm interested in, because I think that there are so many misunderstandings and there are so many places of what I would say are actually is a bad focus.
Well,
that leads to all kinds of stuff that's crazy.
One of the first things that, and I'm admittedly biased, everybody likes their own brand, their own flavor. It depends on who raised you up. I was with Ken Schwaber, and the very first thing he said when he launched the Scrum Alliance was, if this blows up, the methodologists are going to ruin it. And And I'm not sure that that's wrong, right? Now, I spend so much time in my workshop explaining to people why the thing that they learned from Jira is not necessarily a Scrum or Agile thing. And it's all about Jira, 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 because it's the most popular sort of tool for Agile teams. So I decided Fight Club is like tongue in cheek, right? I don't want people to be like getting angry or hostile or anything, but people are so certain of what they think this concept is, including me, and I only probably in the last 3 or 4 years have begun to realize by working with real teams that it's not, and things that I've held on to for years turned out to be not useful. And I mean, I held on to story points for a long, long, long time.
Yep.
And I loved burn downs, and those things are still there. But the other reason I thought this might be useful is because I spend so much time in my workshops sort of undoing a lot of this. So I thought that this might be useful. So I guess we'll see.
Andreas entered the room. Do you want to give them the opportunity to speak?
Sure, if he wants to. What's up, Andreas?
Hello, thank you. So, I just dropped on because the title looked kind of cool, and yeah, what are we going to talk about?
Well, we're almost done with this session. This is the first time we've done it, and it's I wasn't 100% sold on it, but hopefully this is going to be an ongoing conversation about agility and the differences that people think are 100% right that probably aren't, including people like me who've been doing it a long time.
Oh, you can do this 24 hours a day then.
Right, I know. I haven't found a useful way. Twitter isn't very useful because I've been, very haphazardly and without much interest spreading information on Twitter for a long time. And back when Facebook was still a thing, I did that. And this seems like possibly a way to start expressing these ideas and letting people sort of talk to each other. So that's all we had in mind. I think we're gonna do it once a week for now, probably at this time. Lake says this is when everybody's on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Katrina Lake is my business partner. Kavanaugh and I are from Fearless Agility. It's a company that I started a bunch of years ago to do training and coaching in Scrum and other Agile coaches. And Kavanaugh is my new Scrum Master, started in September. And Katrina Lake is the businessy person who said, you know what, you should try this Clubhouse thing. So, okay.
Jim, you got time to answer one more question?
Sure.
How about, how can I convince my company we need a Scrum Master versus a PMP?
You can't. Why bother? Don't. Find somebody who has both that is the way that you want them to be. Because individuals are smart. They want what's best for themselves and for the people around them. Companies are dangerous and stupid and amoral because that's what companies are. It's sort of like that line from Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black when Will Smith says, "Well, people are smart; they could handle it." And Tommy Lee Jones says, "No. A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky animals, and you know it." And I think it's the same way. I have never convinced somebody just by talking to them that Scrum was a good idea, that agility was a good idea, what agility really is versus what they thought it was. The only thing that works in any of this is do whatever you have to get things working and moving, and definitely arguing about certifications and letters and names of things is probably not useful. I hardly ever, when I'm out in the real world, use Scrum words, if I'm honest, unless that's what the client expects. And then it creates other issues because they're like, well, that's not what that means. I'm like, okay, what do you think it means? So convincing somebody that they need a Scrum Master, not a PMP, find a PMP that has a good Scrum skill set and ideas and get them in.
And don't call Scrum.
Yeah, people hate that word. I hate that word. I hated that word when I first heard about it. And there's been so much. There was a problem, I would say, about gosh, I want to say 8 or 9 years ago, because I've been part of the Scrum Alliance for a long, long time, and I grew up with Ken and some others, and right around 2008 or so, when it started to really blow up, right, and it was getting brand awareness, and it's just a brand now, right? It's a brand name for things, and most people who work for a living actually don't love it. There was a big argument in the community about if you're going to be a trainer, do you have to have actually done it? My argument was and is, yes, you have to have actually done it because it's this very lightweight framework and you have to figure out a whole bunch of other stuff. But there were plenty of people who were like, no, you don't. You don't have to have done something to teach people about it. So the result is there's a lot of, and then Agile Coach became a thing. And that was even worse because anybody could call themselves that. And I've had probably 100 people from big consulting shops. I'm not going to say Accenture, but I'm not going to say that. Show up at my workshop like 2 days before they're supposed to go be the Agile coach at some engagement, and they just cobble together something from the internet and some books. And I don't think agility is a thing that you can learn. I think it's a thing that you have to stumble your way through. I give people the best information I have available as of right now, and so I tell people, though, the only way you're going to become good at this is to do it badly for a while. And as soon as you say certain words, certain people get uptight about it, right? As soon as you say professional Scrum Master or PSM, all the Scrum Alliance people get wigged out. As soon as you say CSM or Scrum Alliance, all the PSM people get wigged out. And if you say either of those, all the SAFe people get wigged out. I actually started a nonprofit called Middle Path Agility to try and say, could we just not use any of these words? I think many of us have done this and have some common understanding of what works and what doesn't. Why do we have to label everything? Let's just do what works. And then I decided, you know what, Kavanaugh? We should make a new certification. We're going to call it DWW. Do what
And that
works.
stands for.
Do what works. And then the next tier certification, because that's what happens, is you have another certification, is GSD, which is get shit done.
Jimmy, we've got Melissa and Jonathan also in the room. If you want to allow them speaking privilege.
Sure. Am I the only one who can do this?
At the moment, next time we'll have you make me moderator so I can do that behind the scenes.
Oh, it's Melissa Boggs. What's up, M Boggs?
Jimmy,
How's it going?
I came to bitch about professional Scrum Masters.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I definitely did not. I have very close friends that are professional Scrum Masters.
for those of you who don't know, until recently, Melissa Boggs was the co-CEO of the Scrum Alliance, and
What?
and a lovely person.
Hi. You're getting lots of people joining now.
That's how this thing works, right? Like, so, yeah, your little dings are out the window, Cav. This Scrum Master's nuts. So I have this maybe I'll post a picture at some point. I have a timer, like one of those old digital flip timer clocks, and a whole minute-by-minute schedule. This is the only time I would ever do this for this session, and it's not going anything like that. But the snow's not that good today, so I'm not in a huge hurry to get out on the mountain.
I just wanted to hop in and say what's up.
What's up?
Watching you guys on YouTube right
Jonathan Sinclair. Yeah, the time delay is a little bit funny. I had to turn it off.
Yeah, it's probably like a 15-second delay.
Yeah. And I only did that because I'm an old ass man and I didn't know what Clubhouse was, and I only just figured out YouTube live streaming. So that's what the kids do.
Probably better.
That's what the kids do.
Clubhouse
Plus,
is a little weird.
I'm going to cut some of this up into a TikTok because it annoys the teenagers like crazy. I do some stupid TikTok that's ridiculous and awful, and it gets more, traction than their TikToks do. And then one of them's like, they're just making fun of you. I'm like, hey, kid, all press is good press. Now, is anybody going to do anything for me from TikTok? Probably not.
What would you like to have happen?
I would like people to have a place where we can regularly have conversations where it's not the bitter, divisive arguments that if you don't do this, you're not agile. If you do this, you're not agile. If you don't do this, or if you don't have these letters or these letters, and start talking about, it's not new anymore. It's been arguably, although I think 93 wasn't really, that was sort of like 93 to 99 was precursors, having been there. What works and what doesn't? And do we still need these words? I am very frustrated with the word capital A agile because I have spent 20 some years trying to explain to people what that one word means, and that makes me think maybe that word isn't useful. I struggle with the word scrum, same thing, right? And I know, I mean, I've talked to Ken about it a few times. The language in Scrum is all because mostly Ken had this idea in the beginning. We need to use different language because we're doing something different and people need to understand that. But all that happened is that people just bolted that language onto what they were doing, right? I see that all the time when I'm coaching. Like, hey, we've been doing Scrum for 4 years and we're super agile. And they're not anything that I would call agile or using an empirical process. I don't use the word Scrum so much anymore. I say empirical product development. But it doesn't look anything like what I've seen be useful. And then there's this big argument about words, and I don't think that that's terribly useful. So I'm hoping we can start to socialize ideas.
Maybe we can call it alternative facts.
Alternative facts. Yeah. Sehr gut, mein Herr.
Congratulations on your German.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Simon. I'm just harkening back to the beginning of this conversation and the question and thoughts around, skill sets and history for people who are Scrum Masters. And I very much agree that, the diversity of skill sets and makes a huge difference in people's ability to actually understand other people and so forth. And it just makes me think what you just said about TikTok, don't dismiss it, because, it's a whole different world there. And I expect that there's a whole different group of people with different perspectives that are going to help us.
Oh, and I agree. And I joke about TikTok because I was an early adopter of Musical.ly and I loved it and I used it all the time. And then it got bought and killed and sold and then turned into TikTok and something else. And then all of a sudden it was like middle schoolers dominated on TikTok. So I think any medium that gets people to think differently and maybe have a little beginner mind is useful. That's the only reason I'm on this Clubhouse thing. I was adamant. I'm not doing it, Lake. I'm not doing it. But every time I say that, I end up being wrong because for some reason, she's more like the normal people. I'm a little bit neurodiverse. I'm medicated right now, so I probably seem kind of normal, but I'm not. I'm pretty severe ADHD and a few other things, and so I don't know what the normal's like, but Lake does. But it seems cool. I wonder if this thing would happen if because what it reminds me of is when I used to go to in-person conferences, right? And I would prepare all of this stuff to do some cool presentation with, lights and graphics and other stuff. And it was okay. And people got stuff out of it, kind of. But where the really useful and interesting stuff happened was always like in a hallway with 4 people just all of a sudden running into each other and talking about something. Every conference that I've been at in the last 5 years, that's when the really good ideas and good stuff happen. And I wonder if that's what this is sort of doing. Mm-hmm. Since, like the rest of social media is the conference with very clear formats and everything, LinkedIn and Twitter and Insta and those. And then this is just sort of like in between Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. It also makes sense that, people complain about the one thing that's missing from, having to do everything over Zoom is, oh, you're not in the office, you don't get to bump into each other, there's no water cooler, blah, blah, blah. Yes, this, you set up a weekly conversation that people can bump into and drop in on. I think that goes some way to helping with that.
Well, and I agree with that 100%. And one of the things, and it was Alistair Alistair Coburn, he's signed the manifesto thing, and he does this. He did this approach called crystal clear, and he's always been kind of a thorn in the side of most other agilists, and a notorious napper. But one of the things that he's always emphasized, the reason that co-location has always been so important is because of something that's called osmotic communication, and that is very little communication actually is intentional. And me talking to you, and so I'm not sure about this because we can't see each other, but that's certainly avoidable. But the reason like works better in a team room, like I work with a lot of extreme programming teams, and so much of the good ideas happen because somebody else just happens to notice something. And so then it made me wonder, years ago, I tried to sort of duplicate that with a virtual team by having an always on audio connection, but there just wasn't good technology for it, really. And I'm not sure Zoom is great for that because, people don't always want to be on camera. Because when people are sitting, what I've observed, because I certified like 7,000 people in in-person workshops for 10 years before having to switch to this virtual stuff. People feel much more comfortable in a room, even though everybody can see everybody. It's not the same. You're not on a camera. And I have found that people get very nervous just being on a camera, even if it's not. And the other problem, I think, is, when people are working from home, I mean, some of us don't have a green screen and clever graphics or anything to have behind us. And so we don't like being on camera because, all of a sudden you look and you're like, oh, that's not good. That person's house is messy. Right? And you gotta like make sure of everything that's behind you.
And
I'm 100% using storing that.
Sorry. I know some teams using and setting up TeamSpeak service for that.
TeamSpeak?
Yeah, TeamSpeak. That is only audio. So it's used by gamers more or less. So maybe some of
like
them
Twitch
gamers as well. No, it's just audio.
Just audio.
It's like Clubhouse and fixed channels, but easy to set up, and they're using TeamSpeak service. So
yeah,
might be a need. Yeah.
Well, I might, because the thing that I was going to circle back to was this technology would be useful for an always-on connection, right? Because you're not always, and when you're in a team room, you're not always looking at the other people, right? They're not always right there on your screen. Sometimes your head's down, typing, and you're just chatting, and this feels more natural than Zoom, which is useful for other things, but I'm not sure it's great for work.
Jimmy, we have Grace in the room as well.
Oh, hi, Grace. Mm-hmm.
I'm done, Jimmy. Thanks.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yes, same time. We're definitely gonna I'm gonna do this a few times to prove one of two things: either that I was right and it's a stupid idea and that we're not going to do it anymore, or more likely that Lake was right and we'll keep doing it. And as more people get involved, we can have more interesting conversations.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. Oh, there we go. So, boop. The hand raising thing's a little weird. Hi, Grace.
Hey, how are you guys?
Awesome. We're just chatting.
I really just came in to say hi really, really quickly because you actually got my certification from you about 2.5 years ago.
Awesome.
In DC, yes. And so I saw the email that you were going to have a Clubhouse, and I was super excited because I cannot lie. Probably like everybody else, I'm a little obsessed with Clubhouse right now. But I have a meeting. So I have to go, but I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. And if you have one next week, I'll definitely join.
We are definitely having one. And if you are on the mailing list, you will get notified of it.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Yep. This is unexpected, Kavanaugh. Don't tell Lake. We're gonna fix this in post. I'm gonna edit the YouTube stream so it looks like it was just you and me talking to each other and telling like gross boy jokes.
I already told her. And Chris is in the room if you want to give him speaking privilege. I don't know if you can make me moderator while this is going, but I can. If you can, I can help with that.
I think you have to raise your hand to get the microphone thing. So maybe Chris is just listening.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're coming down to the half hour.
Chris never just listens.
What's that?
I can promise you, Chris never just listens.
Oh, you know Chris.
Chris, put your hand up. Okay, fine.
Oh.
Yes, this is Chris Merman.
Well, hi, Chris. Is Chris a Scrum Alliance staff member?
No, Chris is a coach extraordinaire.
Oh, awesome. The world needs those for sure. So after this, I think we're at the bottom of the half hour. So I think this was our plan to shut it down. We're gonna do it again, same time, same place. Pretty soon here, Clubhouse assures me that we'll have a club, because I applied for one pretty quick, but you have to do like a bunch of stuff, and I'm too lazy to figure out what it is. But I think doing these kinds of things helps. But regardless, we will be back and do this some more. And if you follow Fearless Agility on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Insta, and other places, I usually say when I'm going to be doing these kinds of things, and you can get a link to my parking lot. I don't know how to give links in this thing because it's weird, but hopefully we can have some good conversations. And stop all of the yelling. Can't we all just get along, please? Please. I don't want anybody to be an edge hole anymore.
Then thank you for setting this up and iterate.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised. I think this could be very, very useful. So, à bientôt, au revoir, goodbye everyone, auf Wiedersehen. I don't remember the Japanese for it.
See you later, Jimmy.
See you later.
Sayonara.
Sayonara. Yeah, that's it. I know how to say thank you 27 different ways, but bye, not so many. All right. I'm going to peace out, and I'll see you next week if you're interested. Hakashimashita. I forgot about that one. I don't know how to close this. End room. Okay.
The room has ended.
It has. They're gone. Now we can say all of the stuff. Oh, wait. We're live streaming on YouTube still. Well, that went okay, I thought. Not quite what I expected, but kind of.
Sorry, I missed everything you just said.
Did you do that on purpose?
No, my headset was pairing from my phone back to my computer.
Gotcha. Technology. All right. Well, I'm done. I'm gonna go hit the mountain.
Awesome.
I'm gonna see you again when you come up to shred the ner with us.
Yeah, Sunday night.
Sunday night. Oh, does that mean I have to come straight from my workshop? That I have to do by myself? That's going to be a catastrophe, Kavanaugh.
Hopefully, only have like 3 or 4 people.
Okay, that's.
You can do it, buddy. You'll finish your workshop and you'll get up there before us.
Oh, that's probably true.
Because it's a 12-hour drive. Well, it's 11 plus, stopping for gas and meals and stuff.
All right. I'll see you next Sunday. This Sunday?
Yeah, this Sunday.
This
3 or 4 days.
3 or 4 days. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for helping me doing the clubhouse thing.
Yeah, you're welcome. It seemed to work out in the end.
I thought it could be cool.
Are we still live on YouTube?
We are.
Okay. Everybody knows that I'm coming for the company retreat.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's how we do it.
Yeah.
That's how we do it. All right. Later.
I wore my ski shirt. It's got little chairlifts on it.
Okay, that's super nerdy.
I'm so excited for this trip.
Well, you haven't been out of the Bay Area in a while.
No,